Welcome to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio, sponsored by EarthX, the world's largest environmental experience, and also sponsored by Natural Awakenings magazine. Live your healthiest life on a healthier planet. Now here's your host, Bernice Butler.
Welcome to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio today. We are now about midway of our fourth season, and we remain just as excited as ever to continue to help you explore and understand that unbreakable relationship between your health and the health of the planet. Here we look at the hottest topics related to our environment and its sustainability and how they affect your health and wellness. Here, issues like climate change, plastic pollution, extreme weather events, and others will meet up with everyday impacts like allergies and asthma, digestive issues and gut health, cancers, lung and heart issues, and more. So listen in today as we interview experts for today's show in our series on Earth Day, or Earth Day Month, I like to say. And the theme of Earth Day, again, this year, as it was in 2022, is investing in our planet. And today we're going to dig into how does investing in our planet look environmentally. Now, of course, Earth is our home, and it's up to us to take care of it. Nobody else is going to do it. But our planet is indeed facing a lot of environmental challenges, all the way from climate change to deforestation to pollution. And to address these challenges, significant investments need to be made to ensure a healthy environment for our future generations, and quite frankly, for us, for that matter. But how much must be invested in the planet for a healthy environment? Well, the answer to this question is not straightforward by any stretch of the imagination. The amount of investment required really depends on various factors, including the severity of the environmental issues in a particular region, the level of economic development, and the political will to address these issues. However, some estimates suggest that the investment required could be in the trillions of dollars. One of the biggest environmental challenges facing our planet, of course, is climate change. And according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, called the IPCC, we need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by the year 2030. And that's only 7 years from now. And the panel finds that we need to reach net zero emissions by 2050 in order to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. Now, achieving this target will indeed require significant investments in renewable energy, in energy efficiency, and other low-carbon technologies, among many other things. The International Energy Agency estimates that the world needs to invest about $3 trillion per year in clean energy over the next 7 years, that is by 2030, to achieve this target. Another environmental challenge is deforestation, which contributes to climate change and biodiversity loss. Now, the United Nations estimates that $100 billion per year is going to be needed to address deforestation and promote sustainable forest management. And we're going to talk a lot more about this with one of our guests today. And this investment would help to protect forests, which are absolutely essential for regulating the Earth's climate, for supporting biodiversity, and for providing important ecosystem services. Now, ecosystem services, of course, refer to the benefits that we humans derive from our natural ecosystems, including services such as food and water, includes regulating services such as climate control and disease prevention, and it includes services such as cultural services. And these are things like recreation and spiritual experiences, and it includes supporting services such as nutrient cycling and soil formation. Now, pollution is another significant environmental challenge facing our planet today. According to the World Health Organization, air pollution causes 7 million premature deaths each year. And the cost of air pollution in terms of health impacts, as well as lost productivity and other factors, is estimated to be $5 trillion per year. And to address this issue, significant investments are needed in clean transportation, in renewable energy, and other low-emission type technologies. Now, the investment required for a healthy environment also is significant because, indeed, our health is tied directly to our environment. And it's going to require the collective efforts of governments, of businesses, and individuals. However, the benefits of investing in a healthy environment are also significant, including improved public health, economic growth, and a more sustainable future for all of us. And as we become more and more aware of the impact of our actions and the impact that they have on the environment, investing in our planet is becoming a growing concern. And I think that attributes to why we're having this same Earth Month theme 2 years in a row of investing in our planet. Trying to get the message over, it's not an option. Now, one of the most significant ways to invest in our planet is by investing in renewable energy. Renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and hydropower produce little to no greenhouse emissions, which contribute to climate change. And investing in renewable energy can help reduce our reliance on fossil fuels as well as decrease our carbon footprint. Now, another way to invest in our planet is by reducing waste and increasing recycling efforts. Recycling can help reduce the amount of waste that ends up in landfills, which can certainly harm our environment. And one of the best ways to invest in our planet environmentally is to support sustainable businesses by looking for companies to do business with that are committed to reducing their carbon footprint, that are committed to using renewable energy sources, and that are implementing eco-friendly practices is how we do that. By supporting these businesses, you're not only helping the planet, but we're also sending a very strong message to other companies that sustainability is important to us as consumers, and we're going to buy from those folks who are exhibiting that. Supporting environmental organizations is another excellent way to invest in our planet environmentally. Environmental organizations work to protect the planet by promoting sustainable practices and by advocating for environmental policies, and that's a big deal, as well as conducting research. So by donating to these environmental organizations, then we can help fund their efforts and support their mission to help us protect our environment. And finally, investing in education and awareness programs is critical to promoting environmental sustainability. And that's what we try to do here at Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio. Educating individuals and communities on the importance of environment and how they can take action to protect it is essential for creating that sustainable future that we all want. Now, investing in our planet, as we mentioned, can take many different forms. But the common goal is to create a more sustainable and environmentally friendly future. It is essential for the health and well-being of future generations and for the future of our planet, but it's also essential for our quality of life right now. Whether it's through small lifestyle changes or big investments, we can all make a positive impact on the environment. Now, this is a lot, but here today to help us explore and unpack some of this are two experts who have been doing a lot in the field already. As well, today we have a guest co-host, that is Trammel S. Crow, who was with us last week. Trammel is a businessman. I like to call him the green businessman of Texas. He is a philanthropist, and he's the founder of EarthX, which is the world's largest environmental experience that is taking place in Dallas at Fair Park in a couple of weeks. And I should disclose that EarthX was our founding sponsor and actually allowed Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio to get launched and be on the air. Now, our other guest today is Rebecca Benner, and Becca is the interim managing director and the deputy director for the Global Climate Change team at the Nature Conservancy. And prior to this role, she was director of conservation and science for the Nature Conservancy in New York. And before that, she was director of science for the Nature Conservancy in North Carolina. And Becca has focused on developing and refining conservation strategies, integrating science and knowledge into conservation approaches. Becca worked previously for the Inter-American Development Bank in their Natural Resources and Agricultural Division, and she has been at the Nature Conservancy in various roles leading up to her being the interim managing director since 2008 when she started as a senior scientist. Our other guest is Roger Mort. Roger is Chief Operating Officer at Packaging and Crating Technologies, called PACT. And they are a global manufacturer of sustainable corrugated cardboard packaging containers for the commercial, industrial, and military industries. Roger brings 38 years of green packaging experience to his position, and his specialty is designing cost-effective, patented crating solutions like lift vans and pleat wrap, as well as custom packaging for the aerospace, medical, electronics, tooling, furniture, fine arts, and automotive sectors. Roger is responsible for the company's newest invention called ThermoShield, which is a sustainable paper-based packaging material that suppresses and controls lithium-ion batteries. Welcome, Roger. Did I get all of that right?
Yes, you did.
Thank you for joining us. And Becca, did I get all of that right about you?
Thank you so much.
And thank you all for making time to join us today. We're going to go to break right now, and then after the break, we will come back with these experts who I hope are going to make us smarter. Thank you all. We'll be right back on the other side. We want to give a shout out now to our sponsors. That is Natural Awakenings, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex Magazine, The Green, Healthy, and Sustainable Living Authority for the DFW Metroplex and North Texas communities. Print issues of Natural Awakenings can be found in all Whole Foods markets, natural grocers, central markets, HEBs, and sunflower shops, as well as many, many other locations and office buildings around the Metroplex, and available free for download online at nadallas.com. Our other sponsor is North Haven Gardens, serving the Metroplex since 1951, the most respected horticultural establishment in North Texas, offering gardening and plant education, concierge services, DIY classes, gifts, and more. Check them out at nhg.com. And our other sponsor is Lynn Dental Care, practicing dentistry for over 38 years with a holistic approach looking at the whole body. Specializing in periodontics, Dr. Lynn is board certified by the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. Check them out at lindentalcare.com. Thank you, sponsors. Welcome back to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio, to today's show on Earth Day Month, investing in our planet. And today we're going to dig into how does investing in our planet look environmentally. And again, we have Becca Benner with the Nature Conservancy. We have Roger Mort with PACT, and we have guest co-hosting with us today, our own green businessman, Trammel S. Crow. Again, thank you all for joining us. And I want to start out, though, with our questions with you, Becca. Now, the Nature Conservancy has such a broad scope of concern, and much broader than most people think about. Can you tell us about how and why the Nature Conservancy got started, how you all are structured, and what you all focus in on currently?
Sure. Thanks, Bernice. It's really exciting to be here and talking about this topic. Obviously, it's near and dear to my heart. So the Nature Conservancy really started out actually here in New York. I sit in the Hudson Valley, and the birthplace of the Nature Conservancy is about an hour south of my home. And it really started out by a group of people who saw land being converted from sort of its natural state to something different. Sometimes it was for food, sometimes it was for buildings and development, and they wanted to see if they could protect some of these wonderfully natural places where people go to recreate, where we rely on nature for food or water. And that's really what they did. They put together different funding sources and bought a piece of land. That really started the Conservancy, and we started to get the same kind of actions happening across multiple places in New York. And soon it was across other states in the United States. And before you knew it, it grew nationwide and now is global. Now, since the birth of the Nature Conservancy, we have changed our mission, we've changed our vision, but it's always predicated and founded on that core concept of how important nature is, not just to people, but just for itself and what it provides to animals and plants. And that is what the Conservancy has always focused on. So now our purview is much bigger than just protecting land. It involves freshwater, it involves oceans, it involves climate change. We no longer just buy land, we work with others to manage land. We inspire partners and bring coalitions together to help influence policy that might change the way freshwater is managed or how flows work. We have a presence in all 50 states and in something like 72 countries around the world, and that number grows every single day. We work with indigenous communities. We work with local communities. We do work on the ground. We influence markets and corporate engagement and behavior. We influence policy. And we work on agriculture, renewable energy, climate adaptation, freshwater flows, freshwater quality, ocean ecosystems. Pretty much if you can think about nature and associate it with something, the Nature Conservancy probably works on it. We're pretty decentralized, as you can imagine, since we're some 4,000 people distributed around the world. But we have a core foundation of really trying to create a planet where nature and people will thrive now and into the future.
So, Becca, though, what would you say perhaps sets apart the Nature Conservancy from other NGOs? Our first show of the month, end of every Earth Day month, is kind of an NGO roundtable. I mean, we weren't able to get y'all that day, but what sets y'all apart from many of the other agencies working on these environmental issues, would you say?
Yeah, well, first I'd say that I actually think a partnership approach is key and that we all need to work together. What the Nature Conservancy uniquely brings is, I'd say, three things. First is we are science-based. Many of the other organizations also use science, but that was our foundation, was actually scientists trying to understand how different actions would change our natural ecosystems and the planet's health. We continue to use science as a core foundation for defining what we do, where we do it, and how we do it. The second thing I'd say is because of our global reach, all those countries and all those states, we have a really unique position of being able to take a lot of what we learn and spread it all around the world, bringing in learnings from Kenya to Oklahoma and from Oklahoma to Europe. And the third and final thing I'd say is that we have a lot of on-the-ground experience and a lot of trust built into multiple communities, and we work all the way up to policy. So we don't just work on the ground, and we don't just work on those leverage components of policy and corporate engagement. We are able to connect the dots from the on-the-ground project to the change we need to see in the system to make sure those projects are replicated and are successful. And we can do that, of course, again, in many countries and states all around the world.
Indeed.
And I think that just sets us apart a little bit.
Did I hear you mention, though, that you all buy land? Do you all do land trust or land conservancies, or how does that work? What kind of involvement is there?
Yeah, so historically, the vast majority of what we did was buy land. And a lot of those lands we still own and manage. A lot of those lands we have given to state partners or to other conservation partners or conservation land trusts to manage, but we still own a ton of land, particularly in New York, but in every state. That is no longer the bulk of what we do, although it's still a core foundation of what we do. And globally, we're a U.S.-based organization that works internationally. We don't own land, but we do a lot of land transactions in service of the government owning land or creating protected areas and parks. And that then we will help fund the government to be able to actually manage those in perpetuity for the protection of those landscapes.
And what is the impetus or the purpose in y'all buying land? Is it to protect it or what? You know, if there's a piece of land, what would have to be in place for you all to consider buying that?
To buy a piece of land, we'd really want two core things in place. The first would be conservation value. We'd want it to be important for carbon sequestration or for biodiversity or ideally for both. The other piece that's really important is that there's some risk to it being lost. So if we do nothing, that land is likely to look different and potentially really different. It might be food in agriculture, or it might be a big building. And we think that the values for conservation might outweigh those. And so we would buy it to prevent that conversion.
I gotcha. Now, I remember you telling me, too, and you mentioned it just now, that you all work, you're this big web or network. So for the most part, there's a nature conservancy for every state or most states?
Yes. Some of them are combined. So we'll have like a tri-state nature conservancy. But yes, there is a nature conservancy presence in every state. Okay.
And Trammel, I think, have you been involved in the nature conservancy here in Texas? Or
I've worked with them. They've participated with us. It's a fantastic organization. I believe I've supported them. Again, I can't say enough about how important nature conservancy is to the entire world.
Indeed. And I'm glad to see one of the things you said that I really sticks with me and I think has such great value, Becca, is how that you are global. And so you're able to take stuff that you learn or that you see or to use and bring it to other places. That's amazing. And I know that really moves things ahead a lot. So thank you all for doing that. I want to go now for a moment to Roger, who's on the other side of what we do. But Roger, packaging can often be seen as being a contributor to the overloading of our planet with waste products. But tell us about the most prevalent streams of packaging in our country today and in the world today.
Most of what's going on that I work with is corrugated or cardboard, and that's usually used because it's lightweight. It's primarily at least 33% recycled materials being used to make it already. And at the end of its life cycle, you can put it right into the dumpster and it'll turn right back into a roll of paper.
It doesn't turn into a forever cardboard, right?
No, because a lot of times when fibers get too short because they've been recycled too many times, it'll turn into a roll of toilet paper.
When I said that, forever cardboard, that was my playful take on forever plastics. We had our plastics month probably 3 months ago, and that was a big deal, about forever plastics, that some of them can never, ever, ever totally disintegrate. But what is, right, Roger, do you know or have any information or stats on, I guess, when you look at packaging, probably the primary two are cardboard type products and plastics. And do you have any sense of the amount or the percentage of each used in our country or in our world today?
Oh, God, in the world? No idea. I know that, just in the moving industry in the United States, there's like 900 million tons of corrugated waste or cardboard waste in a single moving season across the country.
But all of that, you would say, is we're capable of dealing with it in a sustainable way, i.e. recycling it, reusing it?
Yeah, it should be. I mean, it depends on the person using it as to where they throw it. It should go into a recycle bin and go right to a recycle mill.
But I'm just saying that the capability, we have the technology.
Absolutely.
To totally rid ourselves of that via reuse.
Absolutely.
So what is the history of packaging, and was cardboard kind of always king? When did cardboard come into being, and was it the first packaging?
Well, the first packaging was crating and wood stuff. And then in the early 1900s, the corrugated was invented and started getting out there as a way to lighten up the loads for the horse and buggies towing them and the trains. And it has been like on the forefront up until around the 50s or 60s. And then plastics were introduced and, people started trying to use those because they were cheaper. And they really didn't care back then about the environment and what happened at the end of life. Indeed.
I think a lot less was known. And the thing about plastic is we keep finding out more and more and more every day. And a lot of that more and more every day gets scarier and scarier. We're going to go to break now, and we'll be right back on the other side with Roger Mort with Packaging and Crating Technologies, and with Becca Benner with the Nature Conservancy, and our co-host guest, Trammel Crow. Thank you all. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio today. to our show on Earth Day Month, Investing in Our Planet. And today we are digging into how does investing in our planet look environmentally? And we are back with Becca with the Nature Conservancy and Roger Mort with PACT, and they are making us smarter, along with our guest co-host, Trammel S. Crow. Thank you all for being with us. I want to go now back to Becca to talk about how does nature mitigate climate change? What's the interaction? What's the interconnection, Becca?
Well, at some point in school, and admittedly, this was my favorite subject, we probably all took biology and learned about plants and the fact that they photosynthesize, which is also why they're green. And when they photosynthesize, they essentially take carbon dioxide, which is one of the gases in our air, in along with sun and make it into sugar for them to eat and oxygen for us to breathe. It's a very complicated process, but I just love studying how it all worked and how it all changed around to become sugar and oxygen. But regardless, now it has a new meaning for me in the sense that carbon dioxide is one of the gases that is causing our Earth to warm. We need it. The only reason we're able to live on Earth is because we have gases like carbon dioxide and a few others in our atmosphere that essentially creates like a blanket around the Earth, and it traps the heat from the sun, and it allows us to actually live on planet Earth. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to. It would be too cold. The problem is we're making our blanket thicker. Just like if you have a really thick blanket at night, it's too hot, and you just get hotter and hotter until you start to delayer. The problem is we can't delayer the Earth's gas blanket without nature. That is what nature can do. Nature takes in those gases that we've put into the atmosphere and actually just converts them to sugar and oxygen. So it's essential. Now, we have two problems happening right now. One is we're putting more gases into the atmosphere than nature can take out. So that's why renewable energy is so important, for example. So we put fewer gases into the atmosphere. But even if we do that, we need to take away some of the gases that are already out there. And nature is your most natural, most cost-effective solution to do that. But the other problem is we're converting nature and degrading it really rapidly, which means that it's not able to pull that carbon dioxide and those other gases out of the atmosphere so that we can cool off a little bit. So nature's critical. It's what pulls that carbon dioxide gas out of the atmosphere. We need to do more of it. So we need more nature to try to speed up and catch up with all of the gases that we're putting into the atmosphere.
Thank you, Becca. That was amazing. I've been doing this show now for 3.5 years, and that was one of the most succinct, down-to-earth, understandable explanations given. And I can tell you were you didn't say it, but the words are, you were a science nerd, weren't you?
I'm a science nerd with a young daughter, and I've had to explain this to her many times. So now she totally gets it, and I've honed the way that I can communicate about it.
Indeed. It's like Trammel was telling us last week how he got interested in the environment at 12 years old. So you guys should have known each other back then. And one of the things I wanted to build upon, as you said, too, when we build housing developments, that takes away nature. When we build racetracks or whatever, all of that's taking away that very vital nature. And as it takes away nature, like you said, it takes away the capacity to pull those gases out of the environment. So it just right on point. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm going to throw this now to Trammel, who I think wants to talk with Roger a little bit more.
Well, she mentioned the history of packaging. I don't know how you could possibly summarize that, but it's such an obvious thing to every consumer, the packaging and the waste that's involved. How do the products that you have help solve that problem?
Well, we make crating for the moving industry, for all these bigger companies that are producing machineries and all. Our crating is not only lightweight, which saves you on the trucking, the use of fuel and on the planes, but it also is reusable hundreds of times. So like I have customers who've been using the same crating since 2009, instead of in that same amount of time, probably using several thousand boxes and having to send them to be recycled and all the energy used to recycle these things.
But the consumer, not your business customers, but the consumers, do they really recycle that?
Yes. 100%. Our crating gets recycled at the end of life.
Does your company see that through in any way?
No, not really. I mean, people will reorder certain parts if a part wears out, but as far as end of life, they just put it into the recycle dumpster and send it on its way.
Now, you had mentioned something about your packaging that helps or adds to some of the issues or concerns about the lithium-ion batteries. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I invented a paper about 4 years ago that if you wrap a lithium, say a car battery, in my paper, the thing goes in the thermal runaway. The paper will contain it, hold the temperature under 780 degrees C, which doesn't allow the battery to start forming the acids and the harmful carbines that send off the explosions and the plumes of smoke. In my paper, the battery can burn for up to 21 hours, going from 780 C down to 100. And you could hold your hands an inch away and you wouldn't even know there's a fire. Without my paper at the UN lab doing the same test, we had to evacuate the lab, and it burned up all the 2,000-degree testing wires. And it took like 10 hours to get under control and stop spewing the toxic gases.
Well, that's amazing. Are there, and apparently, I don't know if it's the material you're using that's cutting edge or the way you put it together.
So there's an ink that goes on all three layers of that paper. And the ink, basically, as soon as you get to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, the ink will send non-toxic moisture towards the battery and 60 degrees of coolness. And then it sends 60 degrees of coolness in every other direction. So the battery is unable to collect the oxygen that it needs to break through and get up to 830 C. Once it hits 830 C, these chlorine carbides and all these acids form. And then a simple car battery can be as explosive as 280 hand grenades going off at the same time once it gets oxygen into it.
My goodness.
In my paper, no oxygen getting there.
That's amazing. That's kind of technical, but I think we all get the point that your paper inhibits the oxygen that's needed for fires. Is that kind of the short of it?
That's the short of it.
Indeed. Now, but you mentioned earlier, too, that your containers, your paper is recyclable. What is the impetus for people to do that? Because that seems to be, that's part of the problem. As I see it, there's two sides of it. Number one, the materials being recyclable, and yours are. And the second part is the willingness, people doing the recycling. And so you've solved, the first one, it's 100% recyclable. What is it that makes them recycle? Is there any incentives or what?
Well, I think on this subject, it may be a little easier because most of the people that are using these EV batteries and such are doing it because they care about the environment. Okay. So they're going to put more emphasis on getting this into the recycling stream.
I gotcha. That makes sense. Is that really the people who are the users are more inclined towards sustainability? Yes. Makes sense.
Right. And I have 4 major car people right now working with the paper and doing testing because it goes inside the battery also. Mm-hmm. And in every test we've ever done, because a car battery may have like 10,000 cells in it, mm-hmm. if you wrap each one with a layer of paper, without my paper, they all pretty much burn, and it can take as much as 30 hours for that car to burn. With my paper, it goes out in a single cell within about 3 to 5 seconds, maybe a minute, and the car still drives.
That's impressive. Now, and we have just about 3 minutes to go before we go to break. So I want to ask you this, though. I don't suppose, because you're telling me that y'all's customers are primarily a lot of manufacturers and industrial concerns, so you wouldn't say that plastic is something that you compete with?
We do on the shipping of lithium batteries, because without my special permits that allow you to ship it in paper and corrugated boxes, you have to use plastics and metal bins and wood.
Oh, my.
Yeah, we're one of the few companies that has a special DOT permit that allows you to ship it in a 100% recyclable package.
So are you in your company seeing a resurgence in the use of cardboard packaging?
Yes. And we have other products. Like right now, we have an envelope that you can put your cell phone, your laptop, or your tablet in. And when you go on a plane, if the thing ever goes in the thermal runaway, you can stick it in. And we're starting to see people really interested in that.
Are there any other cutting-edge materials out there that you may be aware of or have heard about that have not yet been fully mobilized but that are on the way that might further revolutionize our packaging industry? as it relates to sustainability and as it relates to reduction of the carbon footprint?
There are a few padded papers that are out there that I've seen. Haven't had much experience with them, but they'll help you to wrap the thing, protect it, but save a lot of weight.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing, and I imagine from what I hear from a lot of people that we talk to that there are some things, maybe they haven't come to the surface, but there's a lot of cutting-edge things being worked on. We're going to go to break now, and we'll be right back on the other side with Becca Benner with the Nature Conservancy, Roger Mort with PACT, and our guest co-host, Trammel Escrow. Thank you all. We want to give a shout out now to our sponsors. That is Natural Awakenings, Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex Magazine, the Green, Healthy, and Sustainable Living Authority for the DFW Metroplex and North Texas communities. Print issues of Natural Awakenings can be found in all H-E-B stores, natural grocers, central markets, sunflower shops, many office buildings, and many, many other locations, as well as available free for download online at nadallas.com. Our other sponsor is North Haven Gardens, serving the Metroplex since 1951, the most respected horticultural establishment in North Texas, offering gardening and plant education, concierge services, DIY classes, gifts, and more. Check them out at nhg.com. And our other sponsor is Lynn Dental Care, practicing dentistry for over 38 years with a holistic approach looking at the whole body, none mercury. Specializing in periodontics, Dr. Lynn is board certified by the International Academy of Oral Medicine and Toxicology. Check them out at lindentalcare.com. And we want to give a shout out to the upcoming EarthX Expo at Fair Park, taking place this month, April 21st through 23rd. Put it on your calendar now. Thank you, sponsors. Welcome back to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio. To today's show on Earth Day Month, the theme of which is investing in our planet. And today we're digging into how does investing in our planet look environmentally? And our guests today are Becca Benner with the Nature Conservancy. She is interim managing director, and Roger Mort with PACT Packaging Company, and we also have with us our own local green businessman and philanthropist, Trammel Escrow, who is co-hosting with us today. Thank you all. I'm going to start off this segment by throwing it to Trammel, who wants to start off by talking with Becca.
Thank you, Bernice. Becca, I'm in the real estate industry, and that's kind of how one of the perspectives I have on TNC. How does the real estate industry work with you all? Are they good partners? Does it depend on the city or the type of development? How does the real estate industry help you do your job?
Yeah, I think that's going to really depend on the context and the state. There is an increasing amount of research over the years that has shown that you can develop in different ways that actually maximize benefits to both people who want to live there, but also nature around it. Whether that's actually concentrating homes together, so you have the benefit of neighbors and friends and other people for your kids or grandkids to play with, and then making sure there's natural areas around it. Or, I live in a pretty rural area of New York, and the footprints are relatively small of the homes, and there's a lot of natural space around it. So I think they can be natural partners in thinking about sort of what is the pattern of development across the landscape and how can homes be sold and who can move in ways that will actually cater to sort of the surrounding environment. And then, of course, there's going to be times where, the Nature Conservancy feels that a property should be protected, and perhaps a real estate agent sees that property as really ripe for development. So I can't say that they're probably always in agreement, but I think there's lots of opportunities for collaboration and looking towards development in the future and how we really want to have smart growth, because people need homes and places to live. I love mine. And of course, we still need nature and to balance both of those needs.
Dallas-Fort Worth is a terrible example of suburban sprawl that goes farther than the eye can see, but back towards the center of the city, not necessarily the central business district. The empty lots are being filled up. Golf courses are those that are closing are being developed. We're losing our green spaces in the center of the city. Does the Nature Conservancy involved with that?
Yeah, well, so first, I really enjoy Dallas. I have a whole lot of family in Dallas, Texas, and its surrounding suburbs, so have visited many times, and many cities in the U.S. build
Then you
out
know what
and
I'm
not
talking
always.
about.
Yes, and it's very common versus I live 90 miles north of New York City, which grew up and not out. So, there's benefits and costs to both. But yes, the Nature Conservancy does work in cities. In fact, in several in Texas. I believe we have programs in both Austin and Houston. And one of the reasons we work in cities is because that is where the people are. And so I think cities have the capacity to have a huge impact on the environment with choices they make and consumption patterns. But the way to do that is to make sure those cities are livable. So we have a lot of programs that are invested in sort of helping green cities. That can look anything from tree planting on city streets, which actually causes temperatures to decline. Cities are a lot hotter than surrounding areas. It could be green stormwater collection. So instead of having these big stormwater drains, you can actually have trees and a little bit of dirt, and it'll actually absorb a lot of the chemicals coming out of stormwater runoff and a lot of the water. And we do things with green roofs. So we have city programs, and I don't know how many cities across the U.S., probably 15 to 20. And we also think it's a really important place to invest because it's where you see a lot of the inequities on how people are harmed by the impacts of things like climate change. Cities are inevitably hotter than the area around it, but oftentimes it's the poorest parts of cities that have the least ability to adapt. They have the lowest shade cover. They have the fewest green spaces. So one of the high priority things for the Nature Conservancy is to work in those particularly vulnerable neighborhoods to the impacts of climate change, where we can help green those neighborhoods and not only provide benefits to people for walking and recreating, but actually improve their health benefits with improving air quality and lowering some of the heat impacts that they have. So yes, we definitely work in cities, and I think it's just a tremendously important place for us to be working.
You had mentioned diversity loss as a big issue that I think perhaps the Nature Conservancy works on. Could you connect the dots for people as to why they not only should care, but must care about the diversity loss, and what are perhaps the current impacts of diversity loss already?
Yeah, I'm going to give you an example to connect those dots for me close to home here in New York. So biodiversity keeps everything in balance. So you have your predators, it keeps the under predators, what they eat in check so that it doesn't grow and blossom. And when you start to get anything out of order, you see these unintended consequences. So here's the example I'll give. In New York, we obviously got rid of the top level predators, which were wolves, and we did it a long time ago. The consequence of that is the deer population exploded. Now, I'm sure you're all thinking, okay, she's crazy. Deer are adorable and amazing, and I'd love to see them in my backyard, and I love them.
But they can hurt things.
They are killing our forests. A third of New York's forests are not growing back. That means that any tree you try to plant, if you plant, let's just say 15 trees, only 5 of them are likely to ever grow to maturity 10 of them, can't do my math, 10 of them are likely to go to maturity because the deer are just going to wipe out the other 5. And that is a lot of forest that we are now missing and we cannot grow back naturally or planted because the deer are taking over. In addition, the deer are wonderful vectors for ticks. The Hudson Valley where I live is one of the places that have some of the highest incidences of tick-related illnesses. I think in Texas, you guys get the Lone Star ticks. We get the ticks that carry Lyme disease.
We have them too.
Oh, yeah, I know. They're everywhere now. And Lyme disease has exploded. I know so many children here with Lyme disease, all because we have this exploding deer population, which lowers tree cover, brings in more mice. All of these are great vectors for ticks and diseases. And back to where I started, we're losing all these trees, so we can't sequester carbon. And so as much as I love those deer, they cause
Becca,
problems. Yes.
in Texas, we have a solution. It's the hunter.
We have that too. But our hunting can't even keep up with the deer population. I'm not kidding. We are swimming in deer. I have about 15 in my backyard at any given moment. I only have an acre of land. So they are just everywhere. So that's just a piece of how once you influence diversity, you cause all these unintended consequences. And what those are going to explode into, especially with climate change. So you add in, you're lowering biodiversity, you're increasing temperatures, we're going to see all kinds of changes. You're going to see food shortages. You're going to have job loss for farmers because crops are going to fail. You're going to have unpredictable access to water. You're going to have high rates for fire insurance. My daughter had a day off from school last year because of flooding. I've never had a flood day. I've had lots of snow days, but never flood days. And then my in-laws in California have fire days and smoke days. So we're just seeing all these imbalances that are happening. And then the magnitude of the impact is doubled or tripled because of climate change. And then pretty much any disruption to your daily life, you can probably trace back to some kind of imbalance between the biodiversity that we should have on the planet plus climate.
Indeed. And I have to think that every region or every area has its own imbalance, like what you just mentioned with the deer there. I've been told what ours has been too before, but I just don't remember. But from what you say, I can imagine every area has got something going on like that.
Every area. And I mean, we could learn lessons from history. The famine in Ireland from the potatoes, where they grew all one kind of potato. It just took one pest to wipe them out. So you want diversity. It just makes you more resilient into the future. And yes, you could follow any thread. I chose deer. But yes, we could find a story in Texas. We could find a story in California. We could find a story in Kenya. And the more diversity we have, the more resilient we are to whatever is going to come our way with climate.
Roger, I want to go back to you before we have to go. And that is, how can packaging help or lead to more beneficial environmental outcomes and impacts? And where do you see things going in your industry from here, say over the next 5 years? Because we will always need packaging of some sort. And I think the world is figuring out that plastics are a non-starter.
Yeah, a lot of companies just need to start really taking a look at what they're putting their products in, because they want to protect the product, but they always think of corrugated as weak, and it really can be stronger than metal, stronger than wood, and weigh 1/3 of the weight of it. So these airplanes could be saving 30,000 pounds per shipment, per flight. These companies, they talk a good green game, but after you sit down with them, they just don't want to change.
And I can really imagine the way technology is moving forward in leaps and bounds, that there could be some very significant things on the horizon with cardboard packaging in the future. At least it's doable as opposed to some of the chemical-based packaging.
Yeah, we've proven to every one of our customers, we never lose a customer, because once they switch over, they realize real quick their damages go to zero. They save so much money on their shipping costs. And, then all of a sudden they're like, wow, we're doing the right thing.
Trammel, we have like a half a minute to go, so you can give a half a minute shout out to EarthX, particularly the film. Are there any really cool films that are being shown this time around?
Oh, gosh, we're not having our film festival. We're having it in October during Half Earth Day. Mm-hmm. But we're having films shown throughout the event at conferences. I can't rattle off the names of them. There's one film with Oliver Stone and nuclear, and we're still hoping that he might make it.
Indeed. Well, good. We'll talk about that more next week when you come back to help us co-host next week. Thank you all so much. We have been with Rebecca Benner, who is Interim Managing Director of the Nature Conservancy, and with Roger Mort, who is Chief Operating Officer of Packaging and Crate Technologies, PACT. Thank you all so much for making time from your busy schedules to be with us, as well as you, Trammel. You have made us smarter. Thank you. And thank you, audience, for listening in today to Healthy Living, Healthy Planet Radio. The conversation starts here, but our goal is for it to continue in your homes, in your social circles, in your workplaces, at the water cooler, and in the grocery checkout line, so that we can all realize that we have to work together to have that healthy living and that healthy planet that we all want. Our culture is a result of 1 trillion tiny acts taken by billions of people every day like yourselves. And while each of them can seem insignificant, they all add up one way or the other to the change that we each live through. This is your host, Bernice Butler. Thank you so much for listening in today, and join us again next week for more on Earth Day Month, Investing in the Planet, and listen to any of our past shows on podcast wherever you get yours. Thank you.